We're super excited here today, guys. We were offered this opportunity with Medina virtual outdoor show. Since all the shows that we go to, in person have been canceled, we're going to do this virtual show for you guys on how to create the perfect food plot. So I want to say a big thanks to those guys for giving us this opportunity to help teach on food plots. My name is Dave Richmond with Whitetail Obsession Outdoors. This is Chris Worthing with City Sticker Chris on YouTube. I think combined together we have almost 700 videos.
Almost 700.
Whether it's on food plots, land management, whatever it is, outdoors, hunting related, we probably have a video about it. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Somewhere along those lines. So unfortunately, we're in the winter time here. The weather's outside. It's not too good, so we decided to do this in hunt camp here, and we're going to draw this out. Usually none of my videos are on a whiteboard, but I figured with this seminar type video it'd be a lot better to kind of draw you guys some examples, and I hope you guys follow along and enjoy this show, and we're super excited to bring it to you. So on topic number one, before anything though, I want to point this out, and I didn't tell Chris we were going to do this, but number one with this is have fun, because food plots are very confusing to people. There's so much information out there, and you can get twisted quickly.
Too much social media.
It's too much social media on how to create these things, and it's not rocket science. And if you're trying to go all these different avenues on how to make a food plot, you're going to confuse yourself, and you're just going to you're going to stress yourself out and not have fun. And the main thing whenever we do this is to have fun. Yeah. Because if you're stressing yourself out, you don't know which direction to turn, it can be very confusing. So number one with all of this is to have fun and enjoy it and learn every time that you guys actually go to plant something.
And we're gonna talk about creating a plan.
Yes.
You need to have a plan. Know the steps and work your plan. So yeah, that's what we're going to look at here right now.
That's right. So whenever you guys are creating food plots, the number one step always is location. So I drew a diagram, it's very basic, but we have, say, the front of the property here, and your food plot is on the back side, right here. Say it's a half-acre plot, and you're walking down the center through your property to get to your stand. It's absolutely no good, because when you're creating food plots, you're going to make your property more attractive. So when you make it more attractive, you are going to increase deer activity on your property, whether it's day or night. And if you're walking through the center of your property to get to your tree stand, it's no good, and you're going to spook all the deer out. Yeah,
the least amount of pressure and select days to hunt.
So a better option for this is to not walk through your center. A better option would be to, walk around the edges like this to get to your plot. Walking on the edge to get to it this side. Just something to where you're not walking through the center of your property. And location too. You could have a food plot here. You could have a food plot down here. You could have one over here, and you could have one in the center, which on our property it is, because there was an existing field and it was really the only place to put it. But the way we access it is through an old logging road that kind of goes like this, and then we can access it that way. And we have screening and stuff which we will touch on. And that's the first thing, is this access part, is to not walk through the center of your property, because when guys start to do these improvements and you walk through the property, you're going to have worse success than you did if you didn't do anything, because your property is going to be super attractive and you're going to push all the deer out every time you access your stand.
No doubt. Okay. Number two, you want to have, like I said earlier, you want to have a plan for everything you're going to do. And soil sample wise, you shouldn't be skipping this. This is very important. Yeah, we say it's not rocket science, but there is a little bit of lab science to this. You're going to send it away, check your pH, and it's going to see what you need to amend your soil.
All right. So let's say you get a soil sample and your pH is most of the times we do soil samples, whether it's on consulting properties or such. We've seen anywhere from a 4.6 to a 5.3. So let's say your pH comes back as a 5.3, and it tells you to add 5,000 pounds of lime. okay, but your CEC is very low. Your soil, what CEC is, your soil can only hold so much. It's kind of like say like a wall compared to a screen door. If you're adding, say, 4,000 pounds of lime to your 1 acre plot, because that's what the soil sample calls for, if you do that in one application, that soil may not be able to hold all of that lime at one time. So it's going to kind of wash through that soil like a screen door.
Yeah.
So a better option is, like Chris is going to talk about here, is split apps locations.
Split applications, what we mean by that is you're going to put enough of your fertilizer in the soil at planting, and also when you amend, you're going to add some in and incorporate it. But as Dave just said with the CEC, if you get that number, and what happens is your soil can't handle it. Maybe you have a sandy soil or something, and that stuff is your fertilizer and lime is going to end up leaching through the soil and dissipating and be gone. So you want to have it in incorporation with your soil at all times. So there may be different, you might have to do it in halves, thirds, whatever. But yeah, get the majority of it on at planting, and then you're going to add to it later.
Yeah, split applications are definitely a very good option for this type of setup, especially if you have a low CEC. Over time, we'll touch on this in a second, but organic matter, the higher this number the CEC gets, the more that the soil will be able to actually hold. And then over time, you'll notice when you soil sample your food plots each year, the less and less of lime you'll need, the less fertility, granular fertilizer that you'll need over time as that CEC and organic matter build up.
Yeah. You may ask why pH is so important, and we're going to talk about these numbers right now. These numbers are very important because when you are purchasing your recommendations that you get back from your soil samples, if your pH is around a 5.0, studies have shown that only 50% of your fertilizer is going to be uptaked into your plants. So let's say you're spending $1,000 on your fertilizer. We're trying to save you money and help you out at this point. With a 5.0 and you spend $1,000 and only 50% is usable to your plants, you're wasting $500 that you're putting in the dirt. That's why it's so important. And definitely, the numbers as they climb with your pH, when you get up to higher numbers, that is more usable fertilizer that's going to be working for you, not against you, and it won't be bound up in the dirt, ready to be uptaked into the plants. So that is why pH is so important. You're just wasting money if you're not around optimal levels, which is around a 6.5, 6.7. That's what you're aiming to get at. So the lower your number is, the worse, you're just throwing your money into the dirt, basically. It's wasted.
Yeah, another tip with that, Chris, is when you have low pH, the plants can absorb those nutrients, fertility levels in the soil, which then can't give it to the deer. So when you're trying to build a deer herd and give extra nutrition to deer, it's always best to start with that soil because it's a transfer process. The soil gives it to the plants, and then the plants give it to the wildlife, and then that way the wildlife can flourish.
And that's a good point, because guys are always asking, how can I build my deer? I want bigger deer, bigger antlers. How do I grow antlers? Well, give them the best nutrition you can give them.
Yeah.
And giving them a 5.3 isn't the best nutrition they can have.
Right.
So this number has to be best as optimal as you can get it. So that's why we talk about pH a lot.
And when you get your soil sample, it's going to come and say you got a 5.3. It may say you need 4,000 pounds of lime. Well, you have pellet lime and ag lime. Pellet lime was created into a pellet to be easier to spread through a regular ATV spreader, handbag spreader, whatever spreader that you have. Ag lime is powdered lime, and it requires a special spreader to spread that. Now, there's a lot of confusion out there whether ag lime, you can use less pellet lime compared to ag lime, and that's false. It's equal amounts. It's just that the pellet was created into a pellet to be easier to spread. So average out there is 2,000 pounds of lime to 1 acre will raise the point by 1, and that's a general term, but it also goes back to your CEC organic matter of that soil, it may require, that's why when you get your sample, it may say 5,000 pounds for an acre, because the soil is so poor, it has low CEC, low organic matter, you need a lot of lime to bring that pH up. Ag lime lasts longer into the soil for many years. Pellet lime is easier to spread for the convenience factor, but it doesn't last as long in the soil.
Temporary fix.
Yeah, it's temporary fix.
I want to touch on CEC, meaning cation exchange, and now I'm going to use a different abbreviation, is CCE. Dave was talking about pelletized lime. If you read on the bag has the ingredients on it, and I'll just write that in here now, a CCE. That is your calcium carbonate equivalent. I hope I said that right, but that is your equivalent that's in your bag.
Yep.
Now, a lot of pelletized lime, a lot of those are only 80%. Okay, 80% CCE. So you're buying a bag of 50 pound of lime, or 40 pound, whatever you have locally. If it says 80%, you're not getting a 50 pound bag of pellet lime.
Right.
So you want to get these bags and look on the back and get the CCE equivalent. You want 100%. Just a little tip so you're not getting cheated.
All right, guys, moving on. Number 3 is fertilizer. Very important factor when creating food plots. When you guys get your soil samples, it'll tell you, you can mark on there, say, hey, on the soil sample, I want to plant buckwheat on 1 acre. That soil sample is going to come back and it's going to give you a recommendation on your fertility levels. So what we do is, say it calls for 300 pounds of triple 19, N, P, and K. What we like to do with this is we granular feed at about 50 to 80% of the recommended rate. So if it calls for 300 pounds, we may be adding 150 pounds. We may be adding 200 pounds. We cut that ratio by half, and then we come back in and foliar feed. Foliar feeding is a very beneficial thing to do when it comes to food plots and even natural browse, is that when you foliar feed, it's 100% active in that plant, meaning the plant is able to utilize that 100% because you're bypassing that soil and you're bypassing all the other issues that we talked about earlier, CEC, organic matter. We're bypassing all of these issues that can be low. We're giving it to the plants directly 100%, especially when that product has a sticker and surfactant in it. A sticker actually sticks that foliar feed to the plant, and then the surfactant actually loosens the pores of the plant to allow that plant to ingest it. So it can rain a couple minutes later and it can't be washed off, and it sits there and the sticker holds it so it can feed that plant continuously over time, so you can have the best results possible, not only for the plants but then for the deer, because you're increasing the mineral content directly from that or in that plant. You're tripling it, doubling it of mineral content in that plant.
And the particular one that we use, the sticker is, let's just generalize it and say it's like rubberized.
Yeah.
So when the deer bites it, it stays with it, or while the plant grows, it expands with it. It stays on. So any moisture content, rain, dew, even some melting snow or whatever, you are going to be getting the effects of the foliar feeding.
Since Chris failed to mention, we're using Antler Grow. Antler Grow, it has a sticker and surfactant in there. We've been using this for like 5 years now, and the reason we use this is because it already does have that sticker and surfactant in it, and it's micronutrients. Pardon my handwriting. But micronutrients are another piece to the puzzle. You have NPK and you have micronutrients. Micronutrients are live, living nutrition. It's a micro. Macronutrition is dead nutrition. Micronutrition takes a little bit to make a huge difference. Macronutrition takes a lot to make a little bit of a difference. So both are very important when it comes to food plots, not only for the food plot health, but for deer health. foliar feeding is very beneficial. On the farm side, agricultural side, foliar feeding is very, it's a hot topic, and farmers get it because they see the reward and benefits from the hay production, the cows, whatever it is that they're using it for. Hunters are a little bit more skeptical about foliar feeding because over the years they have been burned by gimmicks on the market, and they're a little bit more hesitant to use foliar feeding. That's why we use Antler Grow. We used it for many years, like I said, and it works very well.
They also have another product. Want to write the other product down?
Yep.
They have a product that we call NPK, but it's Farmer's Touch. So we were talking about foliar feeding and, you know, putting your 80% on and spraying. Well, they have a liquid NP and K, and they're coming out with a new formulation. Actually, it's going to be a little bit higher percentages.
Right now, it's a 5, 13, 8.
So yeah, this is something that can benefit you if you fail to get enough of your other amendments on to your.
It's just another tool in the toolbox.
Another tool.
Moving on, guys, we're going to talk about what to actually plant. I'm going to cover springtime and frost seed. Chris is going to cover fall. You can tell whose handwriting's better. But starting right out in the spring, a lot of guys like to establish clovers, which can be great. When you're establishing a clover food plot in the spring, it's going to be a perennial which grows back every year, and in the spring and summer you're going to have to deal with some weeds. We had this issue this past year with Chris. So in this instance, before you plant your clovers, you're going to have to do a chemical burn down to get your clovers established in the majority of times, and you'll have to maintain those with some sprayings throughout the summer to get that clover food plot established. It can be done. We've done it before. A better option is to frost seed clovers into standing wheat and rye. So if you're planting your wheat and rye in the fall, you're going to let that establish, and in the spring, say March, end of February, you can just frost seed clovers into that wheat and rye, let those clovers establish, and say whatever it is, June, mid-June, end of June, your wheat and rye is going to start to fade out. Your clover is established. You mow that wheat and rye, it kills it, and you're left with a beautiful clover plot. Now, we like to plant buckwheat. Very seldom do we plant clovers, but we do. We like to plant buckwheat, and the reason being is buckwheat is very good organic matter for the soil. It's easy to establish, loves heat, and it deals very tolerant to drought. It's high in moisture content. A lot of folks don't realize that deer actually get a lot of their water content from plants and not from drinking water. Deer can go days, weeks without drinking water. They get majority of their water through plants. Buckwheat, if you snap a stalk in half, it literally shoots out water because it holds it in there. It's very high in moisture content. We like to till this back into the soil in the fall, create organic matter, helps build that soil, and it's very easy to establish. Typically around the 70-day mark, it starts to flower and deer will start to consume it. It's not really deer food. It is, but it's not. Sometimes they'll eat it, sometimes they won't, but we like to plant buckwheat. Another issue is I see on social media is a lot of guys like to plant soybeans. It can be done. Soybeans is probably the #1 failure, huge failure with food plots, is because you can't plant enough to establish the deer herd, to sustain the deer herd. They just mow it to the ground. We did a test this year. We planted 3 acres of soybeans, and we ended up fencing them off with a dual perimeter electric fence for roughly 45 days. Took the fence down, and we had great soybeans all year long. We also incorporated sunflowers into that. Reason being is I like bees. I like honeybees, so I like to see the bees in there. And sunflowers, you got that huge head on there, creates great green manure when you turn that back into the soil. Now with all this, are clovers needed? Is buckwheat needed? Are soybeans needed? Are sunflowers needed? Who knows? I don't know your property. We don't know your property. We don't know what's around your property. These are just options to consider when planting. Consider if you have tons of ag, is your little 1/4 acre food plot really going to make a difference on your property if you're surrounded by tons of ag? Probably not. But if you're looking to plant these clovers for turkey hunting, it's a great idea. If you're looking to plant a 1/4 acre food plot to benefit a wild free-ranging deer when they have hundreds of acres surrounded by ag, probably not your best bet. Let that go, and then Chris is going to touch on what to plant in the fall for you guys to have great deer hunting success.
Okay, what we like to do is there's a time frame. We're not going to tell you a specific date like when the bags do sometimes.
You go by temperature.
So you're looking at fall time, sometime around late August, early September. We like to put it in there, and we like to use a mix that contains, not limited to, but contains a winter wheat, a winter rye, oats, and brassica, minimal usage. Reason being, the winter wheat, winter rye is going to be very palatable for them. It's going to be the first thing it greens up in the spring when you start getting some of that sunshine down on your plots, and it melts it off, and those warm days it germinates at a low temperature. So this is very good to sustain your plot. Oats is great. They like to come in and get that early on, but the problem with oats is it's only going to last till your first really hard frost comes, so that'll die out off on you. Brassicas, we like the brassicas limited. That pertains to turnips, kale, rape, radish, rutabagas, things like that. That's like a treat to them. And they're going to be digging for bulbs. You know, this time of year here, you know, we still have a good amount of snow on the ground. They're going to be digging for it. They like to get into there. Now, you can incorporate this time of year. You can put down clovers and alfalfas at this point in the year, and that'll establish it, and so that it'll be greened up for you in the spring also when the winter wheat and winter rye are greening. We like, don't forget, these are cereal rye and winter wheat. You got to remember that. There's a lot of these companies are selling you rye grass. I just had a guy email me the other day, said, look at these bags of Throw and Grow I have. I said, turn the bag over and look at the ingredients. And he was reading it, and the main ingredient was ryegrass. And I said, dude, you got duped.
Yeah, it's very, very poor seed to plant.
So
another tip on this is, when Chris said you can't go by a date, plant 45 to 55 days before your average first frost, which is going to change, you know, from throughout the country. Our average first frost is maybe October 20th, October 30th, somewhere around there. So we're looking to plant somewhere within that time frame. You can even go up to 60 days. Just depends how mature you want your if you're planting brassicas. But this right here is a very good time frame because your wheat and rye will be still in that tender stage. It'll be very palatable to the deer. A fail real quick is planting brassicas way too early. There's guys that plant them back in July. They're so mature, by the time hunting season comes, they're not palatable anymore.
Now they tend to get thick and stocky and woody. It's just not something that they desire. Now,
next step, guys. This is I love this. This is my favorite, and it's going to be screening. We drew a little diagram here of our property 2 years ago that we designed. So we have food plot. This whole thing is a food plot, roughly 3 acres. Chris just drew in some green here to simulate food. But this red here is actually screening. Reason being is we walk down this way, we walk this way, this way. We're screened when we walk by with Egyptian wheat. We use a product called Incognito. What that does is it has different varieties of sorghum, Egyptian wheat, that have different stalk strengths. And we follow soil samples when you plant it because it can grow anywhere from 8, 12 feet tall. We've grown it 15 feet tall. But we have this screen here that blocks our access to this stand. What we did was we separated our food plots with a wall that was 10 feet wide all the way across the field. And we took a weed whacker and we cut a little path. Deer like to travel the paths of least resistance, and our stand was right here. Deer would come out of the bedding area, they would walk this down, and it looked like a cow path. and you guys right now are watching B-roll over it, and I'll show you. It was a complete cow path through there. We shot deer through there, saw many great bucks, and when you're doing screening, is you want to keep it roughly, the sweet spot is about 10-15 feet wide. Deer can't see through it. It holds itself together. Chris is going to explain what he did over behind his house here, or actually across the street. He has a property that he hunts, and he's going to explain what we did over there with the Furminator and screening.
Yes, we took the Furminator over there, and we went ahead and disked it all up where the width of the screening that we wanted. And I had a situation where I had a road frontage to screen from and some adjoining neighboring properties. And so what we did, like I said, about 10 feet wide or so, took the Furminator down there, a couple of paths, and made a couple passes up and back. The key to your screening is don't plant it too thick. How many, I mean, I've failed at this miserably.
Yeah, it's roughly about 10 pounds per acre.
Yeah, I get a little overzealous and I put too much seed in there, and you'll actually stunt out your own stuff.
I'll cut you off real quick. Is when you're doing this, so you prevent this, is you're going to have to measure it all. You're going to have to pace it off. If the bag or bucket, whatever it is, where the seed comes in, says 10 pounds per acre, you need to measure your spot off, do the math, and use a seed accordingly.
Yeah, and we had the Furminator rolling, so really what I should have did is just one pass up, one pass back, 10 feet wide, done. And like I said, in the past I've got overzealous with it, but what this does is, you know, guys are wanting screening so they can sneak in and out, whatnot. I like to use it in certain ways to screen off from spotlighters, poachers, you know, neighbors that are trying to sneak in on you, and the deer just feel comfortable. You put them in an enclosed area, they get in there and they get comfortable. They can't see what's happening around them. They ignore all the sights and sounds. It creates a certain rustle when the wind blows, you know, and yeah, you have that certain comfortability to it that we enjoy.
Well, not only when you split plots, you divide deer. You can have deer over here, deer over here. They don't know, they can't see each other. Maybe they don't smell each other, but they can't see each other. They feel safer. Deer that are safe equals more success for you guys when you're, especially when you're hunting. Use these travel areas. They're very, very beneficial. Deer will use them things. It'll look like a cow path, and put it about 20-30 yards from your bow stand. You'll have good success with it. Moving on, guys, we're going to do some tips and tricks for you. Now, one of the major things with this is pH, okay, and lime. These work hand in hand, obviously. When you're planting and you're adding NPK, which is a granular fertilizer, can be a granular, they also have a liquid, but when you're adding NPK on your food plots, when you go to planting, it drops, lowers your pH, because, for instance, a 10, 10, 10, and Chris will explain this here in a second, 50-pound bags, NPK lowers your pH when you add it because it has a lot of salts and fillers in it. What that does is salts will actually lower your pH. So to offset this, all we do is add lime. We add a few bags of lime to this at planting on top of your granular fertilizer. Not only does it sweeten the plants, but it also will maintain, say you have a 6.5 pH, it'll maintain that pH every time you go to plant instead of continuously dropping that pH, which in turn will give you less use of the NPK. 50-pound bags of fertilizer. Chris will explain the confusion here with that, which it'll go by 100-pound bags equivalents. Take it away.
Okay, so we're going to take you to math class right now. Here,
I suck at math. Chris will do it.
What he's talking about here is normal bags are bought 50-pounders, but these numbers are based off of a 100-pound equivalent. So when you get two 50-pound bags of 10, 10, 10, you get truly 10 pounds of N, 10 pounds of P and 10 pounds of K.
If you buy 100 pounds.
If you buy 100 pounds. So if you're only putting out a 50-pound bag
of 10, 10, 10.
Of 10, 10, 10, that's only 50% of 100 pounds. Half. So really what you're getting,
5 pounds.
You're getting 5 pounds of N, 5 pounds of P, 5 pounds of K.
Yes.
So you have to remember that at times when you get your soil sample back, when they make a recommendation for how much pounds per acre that you need to add, you need to remember to base everything off of 100 pounds so that you get true equivalent of 10, 10, 10.
Yeah, so be careful when
easy.
you're reading your soil samples. If it tells you 300 pounds of fertilizer, you have to do the math on it to make sure you're getting the correct poundage per 50-pound bags, because that's what fertilizer comes in. Another fail with this, guys, is clover food plots. Now, clovers actually produces a thing called nodules. Chris is taking you to art class here. And what nodules does is nodules will grow on the root base of that plant. So when you get sunshine through here to the plants, it photosynthesizes and creates a plant, develops a root structure, root system, and over time, it'll grow these little blue dots that Chris drew here, which are called nodules. Nodules produce nitrogen. This takes anywhere from, say, 1 to 3 months for this to happen. Probably longer, honestly, closer to the 3-month mark. So a lot of times when you get a soil sample and you put on there, recommend you want to plant clover, that soil sample may say that, hey, you need to add a little bit of nitrogen to this food plot to get this established. All plants, all living things need nitrogen. So guys on social media will freak out about this because if you add nitrogen, okay, you get weeds, which is true. Nitrogen feeds weeds and allows weeds to grow. But when you're first establishing a seed, a bare seed, that seed does not produce nitrogen. It has to develop into what Chris just grew here, into a plant. When that plant develops, it creates these nodules. Then that plant can produce nitrogen into your soil, which can lead into your fall planting. Annual clovers does this very well.
What he's saying is there's a false narrative out there. The guys don't think they need to add nitrogen at time of planting clover. You do need it to start, just like starter fertilizer, to get something growing. You do need it to start. But once this is established, then you can account for the banked up nitrogen that's in the dirt.
That's right.
Easy.
Yeah. All right, guys, we hope these tips help you guys. And we're just going to explain a couple more things real quick. I think between both of our YouTube channels, we have almost 700 videos for you guys. There's probably a video on there for something that you're searching for. But real quick, Whitetail Obsession Outdoors. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We also have a podcast. It's on the Anchor app. And Chris just informed me that you can actually find it on Spotify. So if you guys have Spotify, just search Whitetail Obsession Outdoors. It pops up. Typically, if you're searching on YouTube, Whitetail Obsession Outdoors, majority of the content that I have video-wise on search is within the top 5, 10 videos that you search for. But we have a lot of videos, a lot of information for you guys. Chris will explain where you guys can find him.
I'm found on Facebook or YouTube under the name City Sticker Chris. The only reason why there's a differentiation is because we want two videos and that reaches more people. But we collaborate on his bigger channel, and Whitetail Obsession is where you find that. So you'll see us both there. But yeah, he lives in Maryland, I'm in PA, so we do some different things now and then, but we always help each other out. So this is what we're into. And here's some of our sponsors, or I should say partners, in our channels that help us out.
Yeah, check out Antler Grow. We've been using them for about 5 years now, 6 years. I've known the owner for many years now. Great company. Domain Outdoor Seed. It's a very good seed company. They don't use fillers and such in their seeds. It's not filled with ryegrass. It's got good seed in it. Also, if you guys are interested in consulting, we consult on different properties, draw you up a map, walk your property, We've done it many times, and we draw up some good designs for you, help you out. You can email us, reach out to us. For more information on this, you can check out our website, whitetailobsessionoutdoors.com. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I want to say thanks to Medina Virtual Outdoor Show again for allowing us to do this project for them. And thanks, Chris.
Yep. Hope you all enjoy this. We have many educational videos out there, so if you're searching for something, just start looking.
That's right.
We're there. Hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy the show. We'll see you on the next big one.
See you guys.